My name is Avery Lane, and the night everything unraveled began with a single alert on my phone, one I had prayed I would never see. Unauthorized entry detected, home office. I froze in my kitchen, still holding the mug of chamomile tea I'd made to help me unwind after a 14-hour shift at the Federal Market Integrity Bureau. My apartment was supposed to be the safest place I knew. No one else had the code. No one else had access. But someone was inside. My hands worked automatically open app access, live feed switch to infrared. The camera sharpened and my breath stopped mid-chest. Standing in my office was my sister Marissa, hair in a messy bun, wearing my old sweatshirt, kneeling in front of my safe with a crowbar. I watched her laugh to herself as the steel door gave way. I watched her grab the confidential case files, documents tied to an active federal market manipulation investigation worth more in legal weight than $500,000 in currency. And then, unbelievably, she lifted her phone, snapped a selfie, and waved at the camera. For a second, the world didn't make sense. My own sister. Breaking into my apartment, stealing federal evidence, like this was some kind of joke. My phone buzzed again, another alert. Safe accessed, contents removed. My pulse hammered in my ears. I knew the law, I knew the consequences, and I knew exactly what would happen if those files slipped into the wrong hands. But the moment that gutted me wasn't the crime. It was the message that popped up seconds later, from Marissa. Don't freak out, I borrowed your files. You weren't using them anyway. Borrowed. Like she'd taken sugar from a neighbor. In that moment, staring at her text, I understood something with a clarity I didn't want. This wasn't just theft. This was betrayal from the closest place possible, and I was going to have to choose my family or my oath. The first thing I felt wasn't anger. It was that old, familiar heaviness in my chest, the same weight I'd carried since childhood whenever Marissa did something reckless and everyone expected me to fix it. I sat on the edge of my couch, the camera feed still glowing on my phone. Marissa was gone now. My case files shoved into a flimsy canvas tote as if they were coupons instead of federal evidence. She hadn't even closed the door. Typical. My thumb hovered over Director Collins's contact. Protocol said to report immediately. Secure the scene. Document everything. But my throat tightened. This wasn't just a breach. It was my sister. And our whole lives had been a cycle of her storms and my cleanup. Growing up, I'd fielded midnight calls from principals, replaced things she broke, handled the fallout from her debts. Even as adults, she drifted through life, cushioned by my parents' insistence that I guide her because I was the strong one. They never asked what it cost me. At 9:47 p.m., I paced my apartment, breathing through dread and betrayal before forcing myself into my office. The safe hung open, metal twisted from a crowbar. Papers littered the floor. A mug lay shattered. I picked up one remaining sheet, a timeline from the market fraud investigation. The documents she took, transaction orders, shell company links, trader communications, were crucial. Without them, the case might collapse. Even love for my sister couldn't change that. My phone buzzed a message from Mom. Marissa said she borrowed some work stuff. Don't overreact. She's trying to help the family. A bitter laugh slipped out. Help the family. The excuse for every wound she'd ever left. And I knew I couldn't keep playing my assigned role. For the first time in years, I dialed Director Collins. My hand only shook once before I hit call. Director Collins answered on the second ring. Lane. You're calling late. I swallowed. Sir, there's been a breach at my residence. A faint rustle. Describe it. The safe in my home office was forced open. Protected case files are gone. Silence heavy controlled. Who accessed the residence? My sister. A sharper pause. Are you safe? Yes. Is she still there? No. She left with the documents. He exhaled slowly. Disappointment threaded through professionalism. Lane. This is a federal offense. You did the right thing calling. It didn't feel right. It felt like breaking my family in half. I'll file the chain of custody report, I said, and send the video. Within the hour, he instructed. Stay where you are. Brooks and Harris are en route. Do not try to recover anything. Yes, sir. The call ended, leaving the apartment unnervingly quiet. The place felt foreign now, as if Marissa's presence had rewired the air. I uploaded the footage, filed the report, and typed everything with trembling hands. When I hit submit, something inside me twisted not fear or guilt, but grief. 20 minutes later came a firm, unmistakably federal knock. Agents Brooks and Harris entered flashing badges, then moved efficiently through the scene, photographing, dusting, collecting, documenting. Brooks eventually approached. The suspect is your sister. Yes. No pity, no judgment, just a nod. We'll handle it by the book. Don't blame yourself. But my family would. My phone buzzed Marissa. Why did you call your work? You're being dramatic. Numbness spread through my chest. Brooks noticed the screen. She's texting you? Yes. Save everything. It matters. Another message arrived. Seriously, Avery, you're not some federal big shot. Stop acting important. And that landed harder than the theft itself. Because even after all this, she still didn't see me. The next morning, exhausted from a sleepless night, I drove to my mother's house. The gray, heavy sky matched the dread in my chest. Marissa had already claimed in the family chat that I'd overreacted and called the feds on her for nothing, so if I didn't show up, her version would become truth. Mom opened the door immediately. Avery, we need to talk. Inside, Marissa sat at the kitchen table eating cereal, wearing my sweatshirt, the same one she'd had on when she broke into my apartment. My stomach tightened. So Mom said, arms crossed. You called your government people on your sister? She broke into my home, I replied. She stole protected evidence. This is serious. Marissa rolled her eyes. They were papers, Avery, not national secrets. They're evidence in a federal market manipulation case, I snapped. You don't get to decide their importance. Mom stepped closer. She said she did it because the family is drowning in bills. She was trying to help. A bitter laugh slipped out, help by committing a felony. Before she could answer, a voice came from the doorway. Everyone take a breath. I turned. Ethan Ward, my ex, now a top defense attorney. Of course. He walked in like he belonged there, calm and calculating. Avery, he said gently. It's been a while. I didn't respond. He faced my mother. Marissa told me everything. This is a family dispute, not a crime. We can resolve it quietly. Heat rose up my neck. She broke into my home and stole federal evidence. This is not a family spat. Marissa slammed her spoon down. I said I was sorry. No, I said, my patience finally breaking. You called me dramatic. You said I'm not important enough for it to matter. The room went still. Ethan stepped forward. Avery, if you don't confirm the report, this goes away. Just tell your agency it was a misunderstanding. I looked at him, really looked. You think my job is optional. My integrity is optional. My voice dropped. But it's not. Not anymore. Marissa's scoff faltered into something else. Fear, not of charges, but of the fact that this time I meant it. I left my mother's house with my pulse still thudding in my ears. The air outside felt colder than it should, the kind of cold that sinks under your skin and stays there. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something harsher, something finally snapping loose. I drove straight to the FMIB field office. The building loomed tall and austere, all steel and tinted glass, the kind of structure built to remind people that numbers and laws matter. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly as I walked through security. Agents nodded at me, some with sympathy, others with the blank professionalism required in our line of work. Director Collins met me in the hallway outside the review room. Lane, he said, voice level. We've reviewed your report and the footage. As of this moment, you are removed from all involvement in the case due to conflict of interest. I expected this. It still stung. Yes, sir. You will remain on regular duty, but you won't receive updates unless needed. Understood. Understood. His eyes softened, a rare thing for him. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I nodded, even though the words didn't land yet. Agents Brooks and Harris entered the room carrying sealed evidence bags. On the screen behind them, they had pulled up the metadata from my stolen files tracking the digital footprints made after Marissa left my apartment. Here's where it gets interesting, Brooks said. He clicked and a map lit up. My breath caught. The files had been plugged into a laptop on the other side of town. Not at my mother's house. Not anywhere Marissa should have been. Harris tapped the screen. She met someone. Briefly. The device that accessed the files belongs to a known broker tied to 2 prior data leak cases. She didn't just take your documents on impulse. She was trying to sell them. The room tilted. Marissa hadn't taken the files for our mother. She hadn't taken them to help the family. She had taken them to profit. I heard myself whisper, She really meant to do it. Brooks nodded. We're moving forward with a warrant request. Given the evidence, it won't take long. Director Collins looked at me carefully as though gauging whether I would break or solidify. Lane, he said, I need you to go home. Let the system handle this. You're too close. I wanted to argue. I didn't, because the truth was louder than any protest. This wasn't my burden to save, not anymore. As I walked out of the building, the first raindrop hit my hand, cold, clean, merciless. It felt exactly like the moment you stop making excuses for someone who never deserved them. The warrant came through faster than expected. By late afternoon, Director Collins called me in. Lane, the judge, signed off. Brooks and Harris are executing the arrest now. My heartbeat stumbled. Even when you expect justice, hearing it spoken feels like a plunge into cold water. You are not to go to the scene, he added. Let them handle it. I nodded professionally, and drove there anyway, not to intervene just because I couldn't stomach my family hearing the truth from strangers. I parked across the street, hidden behind a row of cars. 2 FMIB vehicles arrived. Brooks and Harris stepped out with their usual quiet precision. Mom opened the door, confused and tense. Ma'am, Brooks said, holding his badge. We're here for Marissa Lane. Chaos erupted. Marissa appeared furious. What now, Avery probably told you? Harris cut her off. You are under arrest for theft of protected federal documents, attempted sale of financial evidence, and obstruction of an investigation. Mom gasped. She didn't mean any harm. It was a misunderstanding, but Marissa's face said otherwise. Ethan arrived next, rumpled, breathless. Agents, wait. This is a family conflict. Step aside, Brooke said. You're interfering. Ethan turned to her. Marissa, tell them you didn't sell anything. Her eyes darted desperately, then she saw me across the street. Her face twisted. Avery. This is your fault. You've always been jealous. I didn't move. Harris cuffed her. Marissa screamed, kicked, cried, everything but apologizing. Mom sank onto the porch steps, whispering, my baby. And for the first time, I felt the sharp clarity of boundaries finally irrevocably set. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the traitor. I was simply the one who stopped pretending. As the agents shut the vehicle door, the sound echoed like the end of a chapter I should have closed long ago. The courthouse smelled like old paper, polished floors, and the kind of fear people try to hide behind pressed suits. I sat in the back row during Marissa's arraignment, not because I planned to testify, but because some part of me needed to see the truth spoken out loud, stripped of excuses, stripped of family mythology. Marissa stood in front of the judge wearing an oversized gray sweater and the expression of someone who still believed the world owed her a softer version of reality. Ethan was beside her, jaw tight, shuffling through documents he already knew wouldn't save her. The charges were read. 3 felonies, 1 misdemeanor. A collective hum moved through the courtroom. Marissa glanced back and spotted me. Her eyes filled with something that wasn't remorse, just betrayal twisted into accusation. It hit me like a cold wind. She still believed I had done this to her. Not her actions, not her choices, me. When the judge set bail impossibly high and scheduled the full hearing, Marissa broke down. Not quietly. No, that wasn't her style. She sobbed loud, dramatic, the kind of crying meant to pull sympathy from strangers. Mom sat 2 rows ahead of me, clutching a tissue, refusing to turn around. She hadn't spoken to me since the arrest. Not a word. Not even a glance outside the courthouse where she stood pressed against Ethan's arm like he was the only competent adult left. When the session ended, I headed for the exit, wanting nothing more than the cold air outside. But footsteps rushed behind me. Avery, wait. Ethan. I didn't turn. Avery. Please. His voice broke in the middle, something I'd never heard from him. You need to know the truth. I stopped. He stepped in front of me, running a hand through his hair. Marissa wasn't planning to return the documents. She told me she had a buyer lined up. She said you'd never find out because Avery always cleans up after me. My stomach dropped, even though I already suspected it. Ethan swallowed hard. I tried to talk her down. I really did. But I didn't know she had already met with the broker. I didn't know she'd drag you into it. Anger didn't come, just exhaustion deep enough to feel almost hollow. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have warned you sooner. You should have believed me, I said softly. That's all. He closed his eyes, guilt carving lines into his face. I know, he whispered. I stepped around him, heading toward the courthouse doors. The moment I pushed them open, sunlight hit my face, bright, warm, almost startling after days of shadow. For the first time since this began, I felt the weight shift off my shoulders, not because the situation was fixed, not because the pain was gone, but because the truth was finally louder than the lies, and I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. The week after the arraignment, my apartment felt different, quiet but no longer hollow. The shattered pieces of my old life had finally stopped reverberating. I sat at my desk with a fresh coffee, the morning air drifting through a cracked window. Outside, the city hummed, steady, indifferent. For the first time in months, that indifference felt like freedom. A notification blinked on my screen. FMIB internal memo promotion recommendation, Avery Lane. I opened it slowly. They were offering me a position overseeing integrity compliance for multi-state investigations work that would have intimidated me a year ago, not because I wasn't capable, but because it required stepping beyond the version of myself my family depended on, the version who existed to fix everyone else's disasters, the version who mistook self-erasure for loyalty. I closed the laptop and let the sunlight warm my face. My phone buzzed with a call from Mom. I stared at the screen. I didn't answer, because I finally understood something no badge or courtroom had ever taught me. Forgiveness doesn't require self-sacrifice. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can give is distance. I grabbed my coat and stepped into the hallway, which smelled of fresh paint. In the elevator's brushed steel, my reflection stared back, tired, changed, but upright. Mine. Outside, the breeze lifted my hair. The city stretched ahead, wide, neutral, filled with paths that didn't lead back to the same painful rooms. People imagine revenge as something loud, but the revenge I found was quiet. It was walking away from a family who only valued the version of me they could use. Choosing integrity over expectation. Standing in the truth until it became solid beneath my feet. And most of all, it was this moment, the certainty that my life finally belonged to me. I took a long breath, letting it fill every cold corner inside me, and stepped forward. Not toward them, not toward the past, but toward the person I was always meant to become.